Yo, what's going on, guys? Versal here, and today I'm going to be talking about the ban list that happened yesterday and some of the implications I think it has on the format in general, and more so for Dinos specifically, since that's mostly what I talk about on my channel. Before I get into the discussion, if you haven't subbed already, definitely do that now. Drop a like, comment, and all helps me out. But yeah, let's get right into the discussion. I'm going to kind of go over all the hits that actually mattered. Not really going to talk about the random things that don't really change anything for the most part, but I want to start off with the things that were not on the ban list. And number one would be our good old friend Misk. I really thought this was the ban list, that he was going to come back to 2 or 3. I even pre-ordered 3 QCRs thinking that it was going to happen, but sadly we were forgotten once again, and it's pretty unfortunate. But I still think this ban list for Dinos overall made the deck in a better position, at least, so that's the one positive to take away from it. But having one miss is still pretty shitty, and it'd be nice if we had more. The other thing that wasn't hit at all, which I think is probably the best way to play Dinos now, as it probably was before for the most part too, but with some of the things that are gone, I think it's even better, and that is the Fiendsmith engine. Nothing was touched in the Fiendsmith engine somehow. That was very surprising. I didn't think it needed anything crazy, because I'm a big fan of the Fiendsmith engine for the game, personally. But I thought Moon was going to get banned, or maybe Necroquip Princess. Those were the things I was thinking would happen. One or the other, or both, and maybe like a Fiendsmith tracked limit. I didn't expect Engraver to go to 1. It's getting reprinted this week, and I think that was a stupid hit to begin with. I think Fiendsmith's a good engine for the game. I think it doesn't do anything overly too crazy. Gives you a nice grind game, and I don't really see an issue with that personally. So I think the whole 2 random bodies into Fiendsmith combo is the most annoying part about it, in addition to Caesar kind of invalidating Nib. So that's why I thought that Moon or Necroquip would be the bans, but they just decided to not hit anything. So I feel like if you're not playing Fiendsmith in your deck at this point, no matter what archetype you're playing for the most part, with a few exceptions, you probably just should be playing Fiendsmith. But we'll see how that goes, but I think it's going to be very heavy Fiendsmith format for sure. Just kind of go over the semi-limits. This is the biggest section. Usually the semi-limit list doesn't really mean too much, but for this list in particular, they put a lot on it, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I think using the semi-limited list for the way that they did these hits this time around makes a lot of sense, because Raziel and Malice are still too new. They don't want to really kill those decks at all. They just need to bring them down a peg, and I think this list definitely did that. I still think Fiendsmith, Raziel, and Malice, those decks, I think are still going to be at the top. It's just going to be more manageable than it was before. But for the hits, we have X, Ice, and Sword all went to 2. And then Dormouse, White Rabbit, and Underground also all went to 2. So these are just consistency hits across the board for both decks, and they definitely matter a lot. They hurt more for the Malice side because they already didn't have that many starters to begin with. The Raziel portion of the ban list, these hits can be made up by the 7th Tachyon by just playing more Ascensions and stuff like that. It's worse, obviously, but you're still making up that extra consistency, so it's not too bad. But it's definitely a loss. But I still think some form of Raziel was probably still the best deck. But we'll see what happens. And then Malice, I think the pure version of Malice, with the Bystials, definitely got way worse. I think the Fiendsmith build is still pretty good. And then after the next set, in a month from now, Alliance Insight, both these decks are getting new cards. The YuGiOhs are getting Star, which lets you get cross a little more often. And then the Malice is getting the Ignister stuff, and then they're getting a Quick Play Malice card and another Malice name, so that's going to help the deck out a lot. Whether or not Fiendsmith's still the best way to play it after Alliance Insight, I'm not sure, but I think until Alliance Insight, the Fiendsmith Malice build is definitely the best version of the deck. As well as YuGiOh, I think the Fiendsmith version could be better, but losing 3 copies of Ice essentially, because since Bonfire got hit too, that hurts that version more than the other one, because you can't really play Tachyon that well in that version, but we'll see what happens. But pure YuGiOh is still good, so is Fiendsmith YuGiOh. Next one, Sharvara went to 2. I was very happy about this since Unchained is one of my favorite decks, so I'm definitely going to be messing around with that for sure. I don't think this card should ever went to 1 to begin with. I thought when it did get limited, I thought it was going to go to 2 to begin with, since having it at 1 hurts a lot of the combo lines. But now that you have a second one, that helps a ton. So definitely going to be looking into Unchained, since it's a fun deck. I just think it'll be pretty good. We had Ash and Poplar both went to 2. These shouldn't matter, since they basically replaced the 2 copies of Bonfire. But at least now, like, if you have Poplar and draw the 1 copy of it, as it was before, and you were like really upset, so now you have 2, so if you draw like the copy, it's whatever. But I still think Snake Eyes is just not that good. It's definitely still playable, especially the Fire King Snake Eyes variant, but I don't think we're going to be seeing too much Snake Eyes still. Then last other semi-limit that means something is White and Black Dragon. I think these definitely have some potential in something, whether it's dragons or whatever. These are just good cards, generating bodies, so they could be used in something at some point for sure. But for now, I don't know if they'll be used too much. But except for the semis, for the limits, they brought back a couple other cards like Brilliant Fusion and Masterpiece, whatever, that don't really matter too much in my opinion. But one card they did bring back that definitely could matter is Mathmech Circular. I've seen a lot of people talk about this card being played in YuGiOh or Malice. I think the pure Mathmech deck is probably still just not good enough anymore. I've seen people ask me about Mathmech Dinos, since that's something I posted about a couple years ago. I don't think that version's very good. Without Link Karibo, especially, like, the combos don't even work. You'd have to like rework them and they'd be worse in general. Even if they do work, I think it's just not worth playing regardless. Since you're adding bricks to the deck, it's bad to draw. So you're better off just playing Fiendsmith with Dinos than splashing in like the Mathmech engine. But you feel free to try it if you want. But I think Circular is definitely scary. If not right now, after Alliance Insight, there's more just generic cyber support. So it's definitely something that could pop up again. And I think a lot of people will be unhappy when that happens, but we'll see. Shifter went to 1, finally. It's about time. I was hoping this card would get hit to 0, but we'll take 1. Anything is an improvement over 3. So very happy to see this gone. This is one of the buffs to Dinos on this list. So just having less shifters to deal with in the format is good for us. So we'll take it. Druid Worm Limited. I figured this was going to happen, especially when these cards were not shown to be in the Stampede set. I thought maybe Magnemite would get banned as well, but it didn't. So it was just Druid Worm, which I think is a good hit. I think Druid Worm's crazy. I wanted to see Magnemite get banned personally too, but I can see why they didn't hit it, because they want Lubellion to still be like a functional card. But it's fine. I think it's a good hit. Bonfire Limit. This was one of the most obvious things that they were going to do. Hitting this card helps them sell the 7th Tachyon. So, I mean, this was one of the like easiest things to call in this list happening, and to no one's surprise it happened. Then we got Detonator to 1. I think this was a little bit surprising, but I think it's a good hit. Just having one less Detonator just hurts the grind game for YuGiOh, which is good. They still have X dump twins on turn 3 or whatever to get it back, potentially, but at least you just know there's one Detonator, and then you can just, you know, kind of game plan for it a little better when you know there's only one. And the main thing with this card being at 1, I think, which is going to hurt, is the fact that Unicorn, I think, becomes a very strong card in this format. Because if you rip the one Detonator, you're really limiting what YuGiOh can do. And then just versus other decks, like if you rip the Requiem, for example, you're just kind of killing the Fiendsmith engine as well. So Unicorn has a lot of just good application right now. I think this card could get a lot more popular, which is kind of annoying because this card's pretty toxic in my opinion, but it is what it is. And then finally, for the limits that matter, Talents and Crossout to 1. These are great hits. I was personally hoping for Talents to 1 and Call By and Crossout to be banned, but I'll take all of them at 1. That's better than what we had before. These cards are just extremely ignorant when you go first, and the game's already kind of overpowered when you go first in general, so I think these cards are just pretty stupid. If you go first and you have one of these and you get hand trapped, you pretty much just auto win the game 99% of the time, because the decks are already kind of eating hand traps to begin with. So if you get to stop one, and then especially with Talents, when you get to look at their hand after and they just keep comboing anyway, it's just ridiculous. So I'm glad they hit these. I think these were like one of the biggest problems with the format before this ban list. So this was a great limited section for the most part. The only thing that's a little scary is Circular, but this card can come back, it's fine. I think it was a weird time when they did ban it, because immediately after banning it, they printed Snake Eye Ash, and Ash is just better Circular, so thought that was weird when they did ban it, but he's back now, so it's whatever. Then finally, the ban section. I have a proxy in here. I'll start with that one, I guess. This is a Bahamut Shark. I just don't own one, so put the Toad, since Toad's like one of the reasons why Bahamut was banned. But the more important reason for this, I think, for Mermail, is that it was one of the only cards that helped to trigger the Dragoons, and now people are rushing to buy out some other like random snow rank 4 or whatever that does the similar job, but that one can't summon Toads and stuff like that, obviously, so it's not nearly as good. But I think Bahamut was the correct hit over Toad for that reason. Toad is going to be a problem at some point, probably, and something else, but we can worry about that when it happens. But for now, I think Bahamut was a really good ban. Then next we have Nightmare Griffin. This was kind of like a hit that doesn't really matter much, but I think it was good to just get rid of it because the card's just toxic. I don't think it's necessarily good. I don't think it's ever necessarily been good, but it's a toxic card nonetheless, and I'm happy to see it gone. Then the other ones that matter a lot is Dweller. Everyone's been hoping this card's been banned for a long time, so very happy that it finally happened. This is the biggest buff to Dinos on this ban list by far, because if you're, especially the blind second versions, because if you're going second into a deck and they have the potential to make Dweller, that's just making your life so much harder, because you have to play a lot more specific things to deal with Dweller specifically, since it's something they can use whenever they want as a quick effect, and then it just is a lingering floodgate. So you have to use like weird stuff like Droplet, which is good in general, but sometimes, you know, it can be awkward. Like cards like Xyz Encore and stuff were things that worked against Dweller, and you don't really want to play cards like that just to deal with Dweller if you don't have to. So now you don't have to play like those hyper specific breakers to deal with this toxic card. So very happy this is gone. I know like Dinos is capable of making this, and some people were looking at it as a bad thing that Dweller is gone for the deck, but it's absolutely a good thing. I promise you it's a good thing. So very happy this is gone. And then last one is Link Decoder. This was something I was hoping got banned. I think this is a very good hit to Malice, because they weren't going to really hit anything directly in Malice too hard because it's so new, but this was the best indirect hit they could do by far, in addition to hitting some Bestials, which they did hit the Druis. So this card being gone just makes their combos a little worse. It makes the deck a lot less resilient, which is the main thing. So before, if you had like a Malice name plus a Bestial and you got hand trapped, you were just playing through everything pretty much at that point. And that gets a lot harder now with the Decoder gone. I think, like I said before, the pure Malice deck with the consistency hits and this gone, I think it's going to be rough right now for sure. After Alliance Insight, I think the deck will be fine. I don't know if it'll be the best deck or not, but I think it'll be one of the best decks in some degree. But we'll see when that comes. But I think this was a great ban. So overall, I think this ban list was one of the best ban lists I've ever seen, personally. I think they were more aggressive than a lot of people expected them to be. Did they hit everything that needed to get hit? Probably not, but they did more than I expected, to be honest, so we kind of take that. And again, they did it at the YCS, which was pretty hype. So I hope they keep doing that if the timeline kind of lines up again. So as far as Dinos go, I'll make some deck profiles within the next week or so. I think if you don't want to play Fiendsmith, because even though Engraver is getting reprinted, Trax and Lacrima and stuff like that, Requiem, they all went up quite a bit, so you're probably going to be spending like $100 or more still to play the engine. So if you don't want to play that, I'd still recommend Blind Second. Like I said, cards like Shifter going to 1 and the Dweller getting banned just makes our lives a little easier going second. So that's good. I think Droll is going to be very popular in this format, personally, so that's something to keep in mind. But kind of see what to do non-engine wise and stuff like that as the format kind of shapes up. But my early thoughts is I still think Fiendsmith, Raziel, and Malice are going to be the best things to play probably for the time being. I think pure Raziel or Fiendsmith Raziel will be good. I think Malice pure is probably going to not be great until Alliance Insight. I think the Fiendsmith build will be better. And then I think you'll see more of the like Fiendsmith dot decks, whether it's with the Musket cards or the Kashtira cards or whatever. So I think those will be the big ones. Mermail will probably still be decent. I think Memento is a good deck. It just won the YCS. The deck's pretty hard to play though. What else is there? I think Whitewoods is pretty good, especially after Alliance Insight. It gets a lot better. It has some silver bullets, but it's good. Fiendsmith Ubel is a pretty good deck. I think Unchained is pretty good. And there's probably some other decks I'm missing, but I think for the most part, the format's not going to change a ton at the top. I think it's just going to be more diverse, and it's going to be a lot more enjoyable to play when you're not getting hit by like crossout or talents or stuff like that every 5 seconds. So I think hand traps are going to be more impactful in general, which is good. And the game might not be as miserable to play when you're going second into some of these decks if you're trying to do like the hand trap wars. So we'll see how it turns out. It's unfortunate that this card's still at 1, but I think overall Dinos got a little better with this ban list, so we'll take it, I guess. But hopefully they push this to 2 or 3 to sell Jirax in a couple months. But that's kind of the last huff of copium at that point, because I really thought this was the list to do it, and they didn't, so we'll see. But yeah, that's enough this little discussion. So keep an eye out for tech profiles and stuff like that throughout the week. Let me know what you want to see, and I could try to do that. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day. Peace.